Listen, I know you have a lot to say about the president's strategy here. First, overall, in terms of the 3 days of this team of lawyers, what's your impression in terms of the arguments that they made, the constitutional arguments about the impeachment in general and how this doesn't rise to impeachment, but also on the facts of the matter?
Well, I think just in terms of presentation, Larry, they did a very good job. I thought they were very effective. I thought it was wise of them, since their point was that the Democrats' case against the president was very thin, not to take all their time and basically leave it with what I thought was an effective way to end, which was the playing of the video of the Democrats during the Clinton impeachment making arguments that are 180 degrees the opposite of what they're making now. It's a good way to end and to tell them that, not that I think it'll sway any of them, but I think it sways the public to say, look, having come to that conclusion, what the right result is here. Yeah. And I think that was clear enough. So I thought they did a very good job in presentation. As far as substance is concerned, I was predisposed to the argument that this doesn't rise to the level of constitutional high crimes and misdemeanors. I thought Dershowitz and Starr were good bookends, with Starr starting out yesterday and Dershowitz ending with that message. I think it was well delivered. And to the extent I have a difference of opinion with them, I think it's mainly because this is a political process, not a legal one. I think if in a legal process, if your position is that you don't need witnesses because they haven't made their case, then that's the argument you make. I don't see the point of making arguments about how, for example, Bolton's manuscript, if that's representative of what his testimony would be, is contradicted by X, Y, and Z witnesses, because to my mind, when you make arguments like that, you're kind of saying to the fact finder, well, maybe we ought to get these witnesses in and get to the bottom of who's telling the truth, which is I don't think that's where they want to go.
The same can be said about Democrats. I mean, as Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of Florida, said in her presentation, the Democrat House managers referenced Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Burisma up to 400 times. Aren't they opening the door saying, okay, well, this is a legitimate discussion point? I mean, the president can't really defend himself on the facts of the case without explaining why it's in the national interest to have investigations into corruption that may involve the vice president.
Yeah, but see, Larry, here's why I think it's different. The Democrats are playing with the House money in the sense that they never thought they were going to remove the president. So to my mind, what this has always been about has been to bruise up the president, damage him politically going into the 2020 campaign. And as long as this goes on and there's negative information that comes out about the president, even if it's not impeachable, that accords with what their plan is for this proceeding, which is to use it politically. They don't actually think they're going to remove the president. And as far as Biden is concerned, I think that when the Democrats decided to go down this road and impeach Trump on this transaction, baked in that cake was that Biden was going to get a black eye out of this. So I think they kind of already have factored that in.
So where do you stand then in terms of what the president's strategy should be here with regard to witnesses? Because now that first of all, on the basic revelation that there is this manuscript, although the New York Times had no direct quotes from the manuscript, just what they were told was in the manuscript. No one knows what's in this manuscript. Is that enough to rise to the level of upending this process and bringing witnesses in?
Well, to me it's not, but see, I'm not looking at this. I'm looking at it as a legal matter, right? So in a legal proceeding, it's a pretty black letter rule of law that if you can avoid a tough constitutional question by deciding a case on other grounds, you decide it on other grounds. And I don't see why we would want to get into the netherworld of executive privilege when you could easily just say the Democrats haven't made their case here. So even if I assume everything that's been reported about Bolton is what he would actually say, that still doesn't move the needle, because all it does is confirm what I must say, what I suspected all along. As I've said from the beginning, I'm perfectly prepared to stipulate, for at least for argument's sake, that the president squeezed Ukraine because he wanted these accommodations. But in the end, nothing happened. So this doesn't rise to the level of an impeachable offense, and I wouldn't really care what Bolton had to say about it. But the problem for Mitch McConnell is he's operating in a political orbit where he can only afford to lose 3 Republicans on any particular issue. So he's trying to bring this to the finish line and keep his caucus unified. And he can, on this, he's already got Romney and Collins apparently ready to vote for witnesses. And, there's 3 or 4 other ones he's got to worry about who are waiting in the wings. So he's dealing with that practical problem.
Well, and do we know about the mechanics of this in terms of what the next steps are? Now, tomorrow is the big question and answer session, right? That's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, if you were advising a senator to ask a question here, what question deserves to be asked of Adam Schiff or Jerry Nadler, or for that matter, Ken Starr and Jay Sekulow?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. If I were the Republicans, what I would want to do is keep carrying what I think the message would need to be if you want to get out of Dodge here without witnesses. And that is the theme that was hit many times in the last 2 days. Even if you agree that the president intended to ratchet up pressure on Ukraine to try to get these investigations, the fact of the matter is nothing happened here.
Right.
Ukraine got their money. Zelensky got his audience with the president in New York. No investigations had to be promised. Zelensky himself says he didn't feel any pressure. And Trump has been much more supportive in terms of lethal defense aid to Ukraine than Obama ever was.
Right.
So this clearly is not an impeachment case, and I would try to keep bringing it back to that and hammer home the idea that we all know how this ends. I mean, if you're a senator sitting there, do you really want to sit through another 2 or 3 weeks of this when we all know how this ends? Whether it ends on Friday or it ends 4 Fridays from now, we all know what the result is here.
Andrew McCarthy, we got to leave it there. I'm looking forward to having you back when the impeachment thing is done, because there's so much has happened with regard to the FISA court and those FISA warrants on Carter Page. I know you have strong opinions about that and what the next steps are with that. So let's talk again in the next week or two.
Look forward to it, Larry.